There we go.
We've now finally started recording. We are having a very fragmented start to this evening.
But it'll get better.
It
So,
will, yes.
yep. And that,
Adrian's pictures are always worth seeing.
so,
I won't go
yeah,
through the
go ahead.
whole explanation. Megan may come on again and tell us more about the programs at the planetarium and related sites later. But right now, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat, and we will start
We'll
with
address them.
Adrian's presentation.
All right. So, for the recording, I will repeat just a couple of things. There's a Hall of Fame banquet that I am going to for baseball. I'm going to repeat the idea of getting out and getting active during the daytime. Number of hobbies that I like to do, daytime photography being one of them, um, or even I would say event photography. But the main reason I'm talking to the few of you tonight is because I've become a writer for Astronomy Magazine, a freelance writer. I have an issue or an article in the June 2024 issue of Astronomy Magazine. David Eicher is the senior editor. I know him as a friend, and he looks at some of my ideas, and if he likes them, he sends me to the editors, and I work with them. So I have two more articles in the works. One will be in February of 2025, where I talk about some I say treasures of the Milky Way, and I'm going to talk about, and in there I'm talking about a few things, some that are off the beaten path. It's something for every facet of astronomy, of observation, to astrophotography. There are a number of different things that imagers and visual observers alike can challenge themselves to find and challenge themselves to image. So that article will be about that. And I have another article about aurora and some of the burnout that we may have had, as you know, and I'll have a few pictures that you're seeing on your screen. You're seeing some pictures from a couple of years ago, but we're going to scroll. We're gonna talk about why shooting at night, and we're also going to talk about um, really quick. I will give the few of you a guide for handling when the media says this is happening. I'm going to give you a guide for what that means, what could, what to expect, and both the good and the bad of, when the media tells you to look up, sometimes they can get it right. Other times they may miss certain important factors. So let's talk about what happened. You're seeing a picture of my priest's cabin. My priest is no longer with us, and one of the first things that happened in this year, which is where we are transporting to, you're seeing a lot of images that I've taken over the years, including lunar eclipses. When a lunar eclipse comes, the moon and the stars behind it can look like that. It is worth seeing if it will be a total lunar eclipse. But that we had a lunar eclipse, but it was not as as bright. This is actually a picture showing a comet. Where the comet is, it's right there, right in the center, right there. This was a comet that was in the media, and as you can see, it's a little tough to image unless you kind of know what you're doing there. You have Jupiter and Venus together. That was another, and I don't know that that was actually in the media. So this is a year ago, maybe even a couple of years ago, and we are going to get ourselves. So this was last year. Um, Rising full moon. So the idea behind this photo is it's tougher to do than you may think. The rising full moon is still a different level than the sea below it, and that is a tough image. As you can see here, I tried to do a composite, and while it didn't turn out too bad, it isn't too bad, but the moon does look like it's in front of those clouds. when the reality is shining through the clouds. So it's when you do, astro imagers, they try to shine through the clouds. And as you can see, I try and get out there. There was an eclipse, but we'll start. Here we are in the year 2024. This was a similar shot, but this time Orion's in the sky. We lost our priest February 2024, and this was one of the images I took to eulogize him. You saw the original image. He was when he was still with us a couple years ago. Different looking sky, but this was, the car is no longer here. Lots of things. Everything's kind of dark. Um, Sometimes my night photography is used to mark the seasons and the changes that go on when everyone else is asleep. I'm out there seeing the differences in the night sky, and you can use the night sky to, if you have a higher power, you connect to it. If you love science, you also want to connect to the night sky because of the things that have happened. This is a picture of the sun. We're going to talk about the eclipse, which I believe happened in March. And those of you who were in Michigan saw this and you said, okay, that's nice. It's it's a nice eclipse here. Those of us who went to the path of totality saw this chain of events where the totality began, the last vestige of the sun's light behind the moon, and the moon and the sun with these prominences coming off of the sun. It's quite an amazing sight. That's the total eclipse. And what does the sky look like during a total eclipse in the surrounding area? This is what it looks like. This is the color you may have seen in Michigan, kind of the sepia tone. It gets even darker during an eclipse. So go see an eclipse if you can. Now, of course, the next one in North America is 2044. So if you're a little younger than I am, you'll have a chance. If not, go overseas. You can see it in Iceland or in Spain in 2026. So the eclipses typically happen just about everywhere. You just have to be in the right place. So in May, disturbance in the atmosphere, and you're seeing a picture of aurora that I took, the northern lower mitten, at Glenny Sportsman's Club here. This was what I thought was a real pretty good shot of the aurora. And then this happened, and we're just gonna, what you're seeing are images of it over Lake Huron from Canada. The aurora, yeah, I believe it was downplayed on this one, but it was, you might see aurora. They all got out, they looked up, and they all saw scenes like this. And for one of the first times in my history, what the media predicted and what really happened, they were different, but what really happened was more than what anyone expected in this area. This was an aurora that was visible all the way down south Florida, kicked up some conspiracy theories. Is it really aurora, or is somebody shining a projector in the sky to make us think it's aurora? Should we be looking, or should we run because we think that the power's about to go out? Well, I'll tell you the truth about all of that. No, it's not projectors. It really was a major geomagnetic storm, and one after another of the CMEs hit Earth. We had a beautiful electric storm that gave us views that you would normally look and see in Iceland or somewhere around the Arctic Circle. This was one of those events. We had something like this in 2003. We're at a solar maximum. It was very real. And those colors, a lot of the colors were visible They're visible through camera. A couple of them, like green and red, and white, were visible naked eye. This is what it looked like before the night, and there's just a hint of green looking to the north. But then, as the night was coming in, all of those colors, and I'll just blow that up. All of the colors were amazing. Most of this we could see, and with a camera, some of the purples, where some of the nitrogen and oxygen were combining, the elements and the lights were combining to create purples and blues and whites. And this crescent moon kind of got lost in between them all. This is a real to life image. Some of you may have questions about, well, things are being processed these days. How do we know things are real? This was a 2-second. Actually, I may have a way to share image. Here it is. 4 seconds, 24 millimeter from this lens. This was a 4-second image, which is long enough to capture me sitting and not long enough to get any additional extra information. This is what we saw. It's a little brighter than what your eyes would accustom to. The light, the green and the reds with the clouds looked exactly the way it shows in this picture. So it was indeed a beautiful display, and that's with an iPhone. People were taking pictures with iPhones. Being outside to see something like this is a reason to go outside and look up. And this is what we used to think was a good shot prior to that outburst. And so, moving along in my journeys, these are images where I'm testing different methods. If you've never seen the moon imaged with earthshine, there's the little crescent that you would see, and then this is the rest of the moon. It's a trick of photography. This is very real phenomena too. Sky glow that is in the shape of that's cutting across here. That sky glow is they call it a gravity wave sky glow. There's been so much of it because the sun is active. It's not aurora, but its origins come from the sun's radiation, not magnetic material from coronal mass ejections. But it excites oxygen atoms, I believe nitrogen as well. They glow in those colors. And if there are so many particles being excited by the sun's radiation, you don't see it naked eye, but you do see the in pictures that sky glow is there. And a lot of imagers weren't sure why they were getting it. Well, that's why they were getting it. It's because there's sky glow. You look even here, it's a lot. And so some of the self discoveries you can make when you're doing these images, it can be pretty amazing. Close up images reveal so many detail. You say, how massive is the Milky Way that you see every little dot in here is a star? There's a brighter one. And then you've got the nebula that are here. This is at the core of why we do astrophotography. Visual astronomy is in looking up and seeing, for instance, the Milky Way may look like this. Seeing it, in a scene like this might be of interest. Catching meteors in images like this can make them beautiful, but you can learn a few things from them too. So let's move on. We had another auroral display. It was intense as well. And then, let's see, we're going to get to the point. This is out, and there's some outreach, some other images. here's a lunar eclipse, but as you can see, it wasn't as, as interesting to me, but it's still interesting because it's the moon and a part of it was in the Earth's shadow. Lunar eclipse. And so here at a location where the sky is really dark, this is interesting because you're going to see this is that latest comet. This was when it first entered the sky. It was a dawn comet. And as you can see, the image was of this waning moon and this comet. An astrophysicist chose to use this in a presentation online about this comet. Things you may not have seen before, Orion, and this part is also the Milky Way. If you look up at Orion, you will not see that. This place is dark enough so you're able to see it. And this line over here is the zodiacal light. So going out to places that are really, really dark shows you parts of the sky that you just normally wouldn't see. So we're going to move on to one of my most favorite image that I acquired, Allosaurus tracks, right here. And I'm near the end of the presentation because I can see the time. So we'll open it for question and answer. But Allosaurus tracks, Black Mesa State Park and Nature Preserve in Oklahoma, where the skies are dark there as well. There's rock formations and the land is beautiful out there. And we had another auroral outburst, and here it was, even more aurora going on. So we had a lot of that. If you missed it, it's okay. That's why I take these pictures. There's the Milky Way in the midst of all of the aurora. And this wasn't even in a very dark site. If you're familiar with Bridgewater, you'll note those two trees there. That's where I took this picture across the street. So, and then finally, as you may recall, we had one more comet. This is the comet when it was an evening comet. This is in the thumb of Michigan. And we can zoom in. There's the comet. It was sitting in the sky. It was visible here. And that's the part of the Milky Way that was next to it. Port Crescent State Park in, I think, Port Austin, Michigan. And this solar picture is interesting because when I turned 53 on November 8th, what I chose to do was go out and take a picture of the face of the sun around the time my mom told me I was born, and I celebrated by taking a picture of the sun. This was the face of the sun on my 53rd birthday, and on 54, I'll probably take another picture of the sun and continue doing so as a way to mark the birthdays, the times. And so there are a lot of pictures I didn't go into, but the idea here is once you get down the technique for what you want to capture, and depending on where you are, Capulan State Park is volcano right here, then you'll want to point your camera to something that looks interesting at night and see what you get. So I know the title was Why I Image the Night Sky, and whether it's aurora, whether it's just another Milky Way image, if there's a meteor in the Milky Way image, whether it's the other side or a comet or the moon itself. To me, I find it fascinating and interesting. And when I'm able to travel, this is near Raton, New Mexico, and I'm able to take images like this. I'm also able to stand there and take the scenery in with my eyes before getting down and getting an image of it to capture. So with that, I've got a couple minutes for question and answer, and I'll be happy to answer questions. Right now, Venus is in the sky to the west. If it's not cloudy, Venus is pretty bright. They say about a magnitude -4. In astronomy terms, negative is brighter. And Venus is, I thought it was a plane, and then I double checked. It's actually Venus. So it's pretty bright in the sky. Orion rises as the summer triangle sets. And so, with that, I'll be happy to answer questions about some of the images.
All right, I've got
Um,
some questions for you, Adrian.
all right, let's go.
One of our visitors asked what the best camera setting is to capture the aurora, and then also how do you take a portrait with the aurora in the background?
Well, when the aurora is bright, you do that by do a long enough exposure and bright enough so that you all show up. Let me go find the aurora picture I took with myself and my buddy Brian Autumn. I think I passed it. Let's go. So let's look at those settings. Here's that picture. And the settings were, oh, did I? Okay, here they are. So a 13-second with a fast lens, f2.8 or faster. 13 seconds. This is a 16 mm lens. Well, it's a 16-35, and the ISO I used was 800. So on a tripod, 13 seconds enough. So basically, set a timer so I could get in position, and with those settings, I let the camera run for 16 seconds. The aurora, when it's this intense and that bright, it shows up just like it, it'll show up in the image. So let's see, I'm sharing. Let me reshare. So that is exactly how I got that image. And those settings are good for the reason you go a little longer is that if it's still a little dark on the ground, especially with me right here, this is me on the left, this is my friend Brian Adam on the right. You want to get more light, you go with a little longer exposure, but you don't want to do it too long and have star trailing. So this is a good setting, about 13 seconds if you have a 16 mm lens, and if your lens is a little less wide, like 24, 4 seconds was enough for the image that I took here. This was 4 seconds. But the lens is like 1.4. So a lot of technical ways to answer that, but the bottom line is so that when you look at the image, you see the aurora there, and you see yourself. And anywhere a 10-second exposure, and just from trial and error is how I kind of found those settings. So those are settings I'd recommend starting with. All right.
Thanks.
Next question.
That was the only one that's popped in so far. I will say I loved the pictures that you got of the comet. I didn't get to see it at all. Every time I went outside here, it was too cloudy. So
That happened.
Very jealous.
Yeah, there were some other comet pictures. They weren't as, I'll say, impressive, but as it was becoming an evening comet, and I have to get there because this is still my trip to Oklahoma. As it was becoming an evening comet, here are a couple pictures here. It's hard to see it, but we had a full moon when this comet came out, and that made it difficult to get the pictures of the comet and that long tail it had. So a lot of images, it's what they look like. There's some folks darkened them, but once the moon started rising later, we finally got images like this where you could see the comet, you could see the detail. By then, it was going away from us. So, unfortunately, and that's an example of the media works is they'll get a story, they'll publish it. They won't necessarily check to make sure, well, can we actually see what it is that we're talking about? You know, can we see it in our hemisphere? Can we see it if there's a full moon out? Can we see, like, meteor showers? You know, if you're going to look at a meteor shower, you can find out online what the moon phase is, and the bigger and brighter the moon phase, the less likely you're going to see a lot of meteors. If the moon phase is new moon or real thin crescent, you could, if you go somewhere dark, you can see a lot of meteors. So you have to take the moon into account with a lot of things that are, you know, go out and look up. You know, if you're seeing a big bright full moon, there isn't much else you're going to see. This image was with a big bright full moon right behind me, and I still barely got this comet. Others were finding other ways to get even more detail with that big bright full moon out.
Do you think
All
we're going
right.
to get any more auroral flares this winter?
We
maybe?
might.
I'm
I don't
hoping.
know if this winter, but
Yeah.
I asked that same question, and the answer is we may get one or more final big flares, CMEs, to come our way. We've reached the solar maximum, and the sun's gonna begin to downturn and go solar minimum. So in that process, I think this upcoming year we could still have some auroral displays, but the numbers basically say they'll be a little less and few and far between. Of course, all it takes is one direct hit from a major outburst, and you know you're seeing lots of aurora, and hopefully you don't have a power outage. The grid handled the last big aurora outburst in May pretty well, and the other ones that happened after that, it handled them as well.
Well, thank you very much, Adrian. I did allow everyone to unmute themselves with such a small group. So if anyone else has a question, you're welcome to ask. You will have to unmute yourself.
Yep, I've got basically a couple more minutes. I'll have to get going, but
Yes.
I do appreciate you all coming out, and I'm leaving my screen shared in case there's any other image or question about image anyone has. Otherwise, let me see if I can tap. Let's see. I'll tap a web page, and what it is, it's a gallery page. And it has let's see. It has links, and I'm what I'm planning on doing is working on it, updating it. But let me send that. So there's galleries there, including night sky galleries, and there's a link to a Google gallery that I've been showing you. You can actually look at some of these pictures. There is a link to a site where you can download some of them and order them. If there's any problems with the site, just let me know. I also work with a printing company directly. I work with a couple of them. So if there's an image that you like, I can work with you to get that image and get it printed and sent to you if you see anything you like. But the main reason I do this is for basically this is my night sky outreach. This is what I enjoy doing, and I'm continuing to work on the techniques that I use to get these images. Whether it's a close-up image of a constellation like this, or it's a full wide angle image of the night sky, it's all a beautiful thing to me, and it's there are places you can go where the sky is even brighter and there's less clouds. Maybe later on in life I'll move there, but for now I'll be stuck in Michigan a few more years, so I will have to stay here. So if there's any other questions, feel free to blurt them out. Otherwise,
I put a link in the chat as well, it's the website from NOAA where they list the auroral information. I
good idea.
found it very handy this summer because it will tell you how much activity there's been in the past 24 hours, so you can see if we've had something like a G4 is going to be strong enough. It might, we see, and then you can also see the last 30 minutes, so you know when you need to head outside if it's cold out and know that it's time to go take a look. So I really enjoy that and find it helpful. So check that out.
No, that's a great idea, because this outburst came. This was the Perseid. This was the Perseid meteor shower. So there's a Perseid, and there's what was going on during the Perseid. So I thought that's an appropriate picture to end on, because
it is.
Nature can sometimes upstage itself, and this is exactly what it did there. So
that's pretty amazing.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and get going.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Megan. Thank you, everyone who came. And I've put the YouTube channel in the chat. This will be there in a few days, probably. And thank you so much. I'm sorry this has been so ragged, but I'm really grateful that Adrian was willing to give this part of his evening on this.
Yeah,
and we're bringing it back.
Yep. Yeah. And let me know if you need me to do a few more presentations. I'll be happy to do it.
I know I'll be calling on.
Yep. And I will. We'll do what we can. Hopefully, I'll have a few more new images to share.
Good. And I am looking for suggestions for program topics, because I haven't really started on the next quarter. So if anyone has any, feel free to email them to me.
Jennifer, I have one to email you. So if you don't hear from me,
thank you.
Remind me.
All righty. Well, you all have a wonderful evening. Let me get going, and keep looking up, as we always say. And I will talk with you all later.
Yes. Thank you again.
I think, in fact, I may see you in a couple days. The Warren Astronomical Society's banquet, I think, is on Thursday, and I have that marked. So I will. I'll try and make a cameo appearance in that one. All right.
Thank you.
Y'all take care. You're welcome.
Good night, everyone. Thank you for coming. I hadn't realized that Adrian had a conflict. He didn't tell me, but thank you for coming. Good night.